So, Brett, over the past few weeks, you've been touring all over the UK and Europe, playing sold-out shows. Last Saturday night, you headlined the second ever Highways Festival at London's Royal Albert Hall. You're closing out this run tonight and tomorrow night here at the Botanic Gardens. Beautiful setting here in Belfast. Tell me about the past few weeks. What are the memories that you've made that you're going to be taking home to Nashville?
It's been an amazing run, and I can't think of a better way to close it out. We've never been here to Belfast. We've got such a big crowd coming tonight and tomorrow night. I think the takeaway has been that, there was a bit of a concern that, well, at least just for me, that as the rooms are getting bigger every time we come over, that maybe we'll lose that sense of intimacy that you get coming over here with such an amazing listening crowd. They're real music fans. And there's this really special kind of connection and intimacy that happens. And as the rooms get bigger, sometimes you lose that. And I think the biggest takeaway is that no matter how big the room, we're still having that intimate, special connection with the fans. And so, that's something that's really special, because as much as we love our year-long tour in the States, the country fans in the States like to party. And sometimes you'll feel that kind of take over, what's supposed to be about the music. And over here, it always feels like it's about the music.
Your fourth album, Across the Sheets, that came out last summer, and I've noticed you've got a different version coming out next Friday. It's like acoustic versions of the original 8 songs. You co-wrote 7 of those 8 songs. There's a cover on there of Tim McGraw's Don't Take the Girl. For me, this is the best example I would hand to somebody, as in your evolution as a songwriter. You're touching on themes there of love and faith, but the overwhelming thing it leaves you with is a man with gratitude. And I've been wondering, when I listen to it, do you think, because you've been so busy, is that maybe a result of the pandemic forcing you into the time off to take stock, look around and go, instead of chasing the next thing, oh my God, look what I've achieved?
Yeah, I was just talking about this yesterday, actually. The 2020 shutdown of the world, essentially. At the time, the thing that I was grateful for is our first child had just been born. So being there for her first year, even though, the father and husband, the provider, and me wanted to be working and making money for my family, I was grateful that I was there for her first year, But looking back on it, it was that opportunity to stop and go, wow, how did we get here, And also, where do we go from here? Because when you press pause for that long, you don't just pick up where you left off. You're starting from a new place. So it's not only looking back and being grateful for your achievements and the success that you've had and the fact that you get to do something you love for a living, but it's also, I have an opportunity now to decide, from the single brokenhearted guy that wrote the first record to the guy that's going to come out of the gates running when the world opens back up again, because you don't want to change so much that you abandon the fans that you have from the beginning. But you don't want to stay the same either. You want to go out and grab new fans. And so who is that guy moving forward? Who is the husband and father that is still that artist from the first record? And I had time to take a look at all of that. And the reality was, the thing that got me here was being honest with fans and being authentic and transparent. And transparency just looks different now. Like the song Weekends look a little different these days from my third record. This is where I am now, so let's keep being honest with them. And so, yeah, there was a ton of gratitude that came out of that, but also a better understanding of who I wanted to be moving forward as an artist.
I mentioned there your cover of Tim McGraw's Don't Take the Girl. I've been dying to ask you, what was it like to perform that at the ACM Honours with Tim and Faith watching on?
I don't get nervous that often anymore, but that was pretty nerve-wracking. It was a big decision to cover a song that was that iconic and that important for me getting into the business, but to have not just Tim sitting there, but his whole family, who apparently they don't go to award shows as a family like that very often, sitting there in the front row at the Ryman. It was pretty surreal and pretty nerve-wracking, but it was really special. And I got to spend time with him and his family and do some interviews and take photos afterwards. And it just all kind of felt kind of surreal. It was a really special moment.
You're not long off a tour in the States with Sam Hunt and Lily Rose. I know you were out with those guys last year as well. How was that? I mean, it's got to be fascinating to watch even Sam Hunt's musical evolution, because he's a guy who, kind of just marches to the beat of his own drum and we all go with it, right?
He did something really interesting. Sam grew up in the South as a fan of traditional country music, but came in and hammered what I consider to be the biggest pop country record we've seen with his first record. And so I think to a lot of people, for him to take a step back and put out the music he's putting out now that seems like it has more country roots and country elements to it, I think a lot of people feel like that might be a departure, but forgetting that that's what he grew up on. And I kind of feel the same way. I'm making country records, but I come from Los Angeles and the singer-songwriter pop world. I just love country music. Sam is rooted in country music. And so for him to be able to have both of those weapons in his arsenal and go, no, this pop record, I made it because I love this. And that's what country music and country radio was wanting at the time. But this is how I grew up, and these are the sounds that I grew up falling in love with too. This is also what I do and what I love. And it was cool to see him be able to pull off both and combine them and make an incredible 90-minute show every night.
What was class was towards the end of last year, over 9 days, you visited 4 countries, 6 military sites, and you spent time with and performed for thousands of military service members. That must have been very humbling.
There are certain things that you get to do in this business that are gut check, bring you back down to earth, and that was one of the ones that stands out in terms of, these guys are out here fighting for us. And the few minutes that you spend with them means everything to them. You sometimes forget, and I say this all the time in everyday life, to stop and take a picture, stop and sign an autograph. It takes you 2 seconds, but it made that person's day. And you forget that, you really do, because you're going about your day. And, but on a much higher level, to go to these bases and these guys and girls that haven't seen their families in, months on end, and they have young children at home and the whole thing. And the fact that me and the rest of the group that came in, we had a great group, can come in and spend a few minutes and kind of lift their spirits. And it was, you use the word humbling, I think that's a great word, but it was also really selfishly fulfilling to be able to bring a little bit of joy and a little bit of break from what they're doing every day, just by sharing music. It was really cool.
One of your songs that in particular really connected over here was Lady. You co-wrote it with John Knight and Ross Copperman, and it's very much a love letter to your wife Taylor and your eldest daughter Presley. Whose idea was it to take, the sample of her heartbeat that you recorded on your phone before she was born? Whose idea was that to have that playing on the track?
That was mine. When we first wrote the song, I held my phone up to the microphone for the demo, right? And it was cool, really emotional at the time. But I wasn't sure that would end up being used when we went into the studio with Dan to recut it for the record. And when he first sent me a cut, it was in there. And I said, oh, you're going to use the heartbeat like we did on the demo? And he goes, I can't take that out. That's part of the song. We can't lose that. And I said, are you sure? And he goes, I'm positive we can't lose that. But here's what a lot of people don't know. I wasn't planning on releasing that song. That was during COVID. So that was supposed to just be a gift to me that Dan did. We didn't go into the studio. We went into Dan's home studio and did that. His son played drums on the record. That was just supposed to be something for me and my family. But the timing of COVID was such that my last single had kind of finished its life at radio, and we needed a new single, but there was no plans to get in the studio. And I went, well, we have this song that Dan gave me as a baby gift, and the label freaked out over it, and it ended up being a single. So it was all kind of a happy accident with that.
And even the song inspired a children's picture book. Mm-hmm. I've heard on the grapevine you've written a song now for your youngest, Rowan. So is there new music on the way, an album, an EP?
The name of the song for Rowan is called Full House. And I'm really excited for people to hear that, but I definitely want it to be the right time. Presley's song was written before we knew Presley. We were pregnant with Presley at the time. Rowan's is a little bit more about how she's a crazy person and we love her and she completes our family. But there's tons of new music. I'm sitting on probably 300 plus songs that I've written over the years that I want to get out. And so we're finally going to kind of try our hand at more rapid delivery, like a lot of artists are doing now, one single at a time, every 4 to 6 weeks, and see what kind of grabs on, and just use it as a way to give fans more music more often. So I think the next new song we're going to put out will be first week of June, and we'll just keep kind of following that format all the way through into next year.
Ashley Cooke was over here a few weeks ago opening for Jordan Davis. She performed Never Till Now, and it was so great to see, a new young artist perform to 1,400 people and everybody singing along to that song. It went all around the world. How did you get involved in it?
You get stuff sent to you often from new acts wanting to attach themselves to an already established artist because it's going to help draw attention to that song. It's not always a fit, and this one was not only a fit, but it was a no-brainer. It was sent to me. I listened to the song. I was like, who's this girl? Who's this voice? What is this song? I was jealous even of the songwriting. I was like, God, I wish I would have written that song. a good buddy of mine, Jimmy Robbins, that I write a lot of stuff with, was attached to the project already. It was just kind of like a perfect storm. I was a fan of her. I was a fan of the song. I was a fan of their team. And as many things that come and go as, asks or opportunities, this was a no-brainer. I was excited and flattered to be a part of this one.
You know, the Reboot Collaborations album Brooks and Dunn put out in 2019, I mean, that really rejuvenated their career and introduced them to a new young fan base. That must have been a thrill and quite surreal to be a part of, right?
Yeah, that was nuts. That was, they were so big. I got into country with Don't Take the Girl in the early 90s, and they were king in the 90s, so for them to even consider having me on and then letting me be on a song that was one of my favorite Brooks and Dunn songs. And I think the coolest part was, it was pretty cool being in the studio, but when they released it, they put a stage on Broadway in Nashville and they performed it live with all of us. I think the culmination, the coolest part was being up there on stage in Nashville with Brooks and Dunn doing a Brooks and Dunn tune. All of that was very surreal.
I was at that. Was it just leading into CMA Fest one year? It was brilliant.
Yeah, that was it. They had us all the artists that were featured were holed up in this tiny hotel right there side stage on Broadway, and so cool that Kix and Ronnie still can do it the way they've always done it, and that they let some young bucks come on and join them. It was pretty fun.
Okay, listen, you've been very generous with your time. Just one last question, if I may. You will not remember this, but I think it might have been 2017. We did a phone interview, but you told me this story about how influential Gavin DeGraw's Chariot album was in you throwing yourself into songwriting. You also told me this story about taking your cousins to see him at the Hollywood Bowl, and then that night you were at a diner on Sunset, and about 3 a.m. he shows up. You're chatting for about 20 minutes. He's talking to you about your music career. He told you to invest in a decent microphone. I mean, you talk about full circle and surreal and meeting your heroes, then to perform with him and then record chapters. Wow.
Yeah, I probably did say Hollywood Bowl because that sounds like a mistake I would make. It was Greek Theater. Okay. He was co-headlining with Avril Lavigne. Okay. It was Mel's Diner on Sunset. And it was a bizarre experience. We ended up renting a Neumann U87 microphone because of his advice. I tucked myself in a coat closet with a comforter over my head and made that first record. And we've become friends. And really cool to get to write that song with him. It was his idea to write a song about my life. He said, if we're going to write a song, we're going to write about you. I didn't even think that I would ask him to be on it. I didn't think that was the right move. First time getting to write with him, to just ask too much, but it just felt right. And that last verse kind of felt like his story, and putting him on it made that even more special for me. And man, when we get home from this trip, we're playing a show for CMA Fest, Brett Young and Friends, that Gavin's going to come out and do chapters with me. And it's very full circle for me to have him be the reason that I wanted to start writing music, and now have him sharing the stage with me in Nashville. It's really cool.